For more on Reverend Warren and what he stands for, let's turn to Rob Boston, a senior policy analyst for Americans United for Separation of Church and State. Thanks for your time tonight, sir.
Thank you, Keith.
The inclusion of a preacher who believes in exclusion and turns to government in order to achieve it or other religious ends, is the entire premise flawed, and is it even more flawed when you bring it into the political equation like this? I mean, can you teach tolerance to the intolerant merely by being tolerant?
It would be nice, but I think it's a tall order. I think one of the reasons people are so disappointed is that, for the past 8 years, the religious rights voice has been heard very aggressively throughout all facets of the Bush administration. And now we were thinking there'd be a change in tone. Yet one of the first voices we are going to hear from this administration is anti-gay, anti-reproductive freedom, anti-science, another religious right fundamentalist. We need a change in tone.
The comment that Dr. Warren just released, that even he seems to be recognizing, I'm wondering what your reaction to this is, particularly. I commend President-elect Obama for his courage to willingly take enormous heat from his base by inviting someone like me. Even though there are references here to supposedly both of them representing the idea of civility in American political discourse, is there something of a triumphant tone to what Warren has just said?
Well, Warren, to me, he has a great PR machine, and he has people thinking he's a moderate, but he's really just Jerry Falwell in a Hawaiian shirt. And we don't need that again. With the sort of passing of the guard of some of the old religious right leaders, some of whom have died, others of whom are sort of in semi-retirement, a lot of us were hoping for a more moderate religious voice to come to bear. And we're not getting that. We're getting this same old sort of fundamentalism from Rick Warren, who, despite what his PR machine cranks out, is not a moderate. He's just another conservative fundamentalist, hard right.
Is this, it seems like it's bigger than the 6 million gay and lesbian Americans who voted for Obama, never mind the women or any other group that might have felt particularly represented by the candidate. Don't Democrats take the civil rights of all Americans, whether they belong to that group or not, rather seriously?
I think so. And actually, I think one of the interesting things about this, you were talking earlier about Joseph Lowery being involved in this too. The comparison is unusual. You look at Lowery, who's this giant of civil rights, who's dedicated his life to lifting people up and ensuring equality. And then you look at Warren, who endorsed Proposition 8, which took away the civil rights of an entire class of individuals. Why would you want to put those two on the same stage? It simply doesn't make sense.
What if this touched some other group? I mean, if there was another example of intolerance from somebody who had been invited to have a formal and important role at the inauguration, if there were an avowedly racist preacher or member of the Aryan nation, or you could fill in almost any blank in there you want, a man who's come out against left-handed people, would there not be more of a clear understanding of why this is such an issue to so many people?
Oh, certainly. I mean, if this guy had made anti-Semitic statements, for example, he wouldn't even be looked at for a second, and that's as it should be. But there are a couple of groups you can still bash with impunity in this country, and Warren has bashed them both. One, of course, being gays. The other, and this is kind of overlooked, is non-believers. Warren has stated that people who don't believe in God really aren't fit to hold public office in America. You can still bash those two groups and get away with it. Now, I think maybe we're moving slowly, very slowly, down the road where that sort of behavior will not be acceptable, but we aren't there yet, and the fact that Rick Warren is being given a national stage is further proof of that.
Well, do you have any idea what it is other than getting people to listen to the inaugural address, which may or may not be? I mean, the right wing that he brings into this, what is Obama getting in this equation? What does he expect to see? A benefit of the doubt, or is he just going to get people who tune in to hear Rick Warren talk for a minute and a half?
Well, Obama's instincts are all about inclusion, and normally I think that's a very good thing. I mean, obviously we want that. But there are ways to reach out and include Rick Warren and the audience he represents without giving him such a high-profile role to play in this inauguration. This is going to be historic. It's a milestone, and one of the first voices we're going to hear is Rick Warren's, and I just think that is very unfortunate.
Rob Boston from Americans United for the Separation of Church and State. Great thanks for your perspective, sir.
Thank you.